15 minutes past 8. Let's get the issues of the day with T Radar joining us from his lounging room today. G'day, T Radar.
Yes, in my robe.
Yes. Toweling robe. Is it a nice toweling robe, is it?
No, not this one actually. It's one of those kind of soft other ones, but they don't take long to get a bit musky.
Depends on whether or not you get dressed in your day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or whether you just lounge around and you're sort of in your robe for the morning, like some kind of man who is relaxed.
You should be. It feels like you should be bringing out a cigar.
They should be, yes. You know, and there probably would have been a time when you might have considered that before the whole cancer scare.
Oh, there's that.
Something to
of course.
do early in the morning, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, there is that.
Yeah.
I think there was something similar to that, but there isn't. It's a devil of a thing.
It certainly is.
Yes.
But the body is the temple, so they say.
That is right.
Until it's dead.
And so are dairies, apparently. Temples. There's a lady out West Auckland, East Auckland this week, out in sort of Bucklands Beach, very upset. Someone has painted some satanic graffiti on the wall of her local dairy. Sort of says, "Hail Satan" with a little heart and a 666, and then the circle with the star and an inverted cross. And
Right.
She's livid that it hasn't been removed. She says it's very upsetting for community members. One of those things you probably could have just looked past. Gone, someone's done that, and yes, it's annoying, but it's not the end of the world.
Point of difference is the satanic dairy.
Yes, for dairy owners, he wants people to come and paint it off, and it's taken them several weeks to do this. But apparently now the Herald's got in the community people who paint it off are going to come and do it. But it's one of those things you sort of forget about how something as trivial as that can be so upsetting for somebody that they'll ring the newspaper and make a hoo-ha.
What do they say to the whole New York broken windows kind of thing? If you don't clean it up straight away,
yes, exactly. And
grows.
I think that's right. It's not so much the sort of the concept of it. I think for this woman, sort of more the message contained within it. It's upsetting for her daughter. They had to see it every day, and other children. And I kind of thought, wow, if you could just explain to your daughter that none of it's actually true. And of course, New York, they've got plenty of broken windows there. They've got the whole barely covered in the media, the Occupy Wall Street thing going on at the moment.
Which we don't hear a lot of here in the mainstream media, but apparently the same in the States. The mainstream media are very slow to catch on to it, and in fact very resistant to covering it.
Yes, the only thing they've really covered recently was there's about 1,500 of them on the Occupy Wall Street movement marched across Brooklyn Bridge the other day, and they arrested, I think, about 700. They sort of catch people up in sort of orange netting and funnel them through and keep them locked up for 24 hours or so. And then interesting, that's one of the large banks has just given the police in New York $4.6 million. Oh, here you go. Here is a charitable donation so that you can have more computers in your police cars, and you kind of think, is that linked, I wonder? Are they beginning to feel the pressure and think maybe we should make a bit of a corporate donation?
I also saw a YouTube video that suggested that the police were in fact leading the protesters across the bridge in some kind of entrapment, and then decided to arrest them.
Oh, yes, well, I tell you what, if there's going to be a group that has any form of sort of conspiracy theory going around, that it's going to be an outfit like this. And sprung up, there's various other cities all throughout the states, and you do wonder, is this the American spring, despite the fact it's happening in fall? Well,
it's very low numbers at this stage, but as you say,
as I say, part of it, who wants to go and sleep in Wall Street? You can't pitch a tent. You've got to sleep under plastic. You've got to go to the toilet at McDonald's. You're constantly sort of being harassed by police, and it's cold.
Yeah, and
at least
the young people of America, of course, very accustomed to very comfortable surroundings.
They are. There's probably nowhere to plug in their iPhones. But I'm sure the social networking thing is a buzz. And, I think they've developed their own sort of social networking. And at least, with the Arab Spring, a lot of those places, it was fairly warm during the day, probably got cold at night. So it'll be interesting to see how it trundles along and what networks they're using. Tumeki, if anyone's familiar with that blog, it's Bomber Bradbury and Tim Selwyn have got a large sort of post up on it today for anyone who's interested in that to have a little bit of a look and see how that is all working out.
Okay, all right. Moving on to Tuvalu, who've got a few issues.
Tuvalu. Look, it's bad enough sometimes living on a small, tiny island nation state with limited resources, but running out of water.
Crikey.
So, they're low-lying coral atolls. This nearly happened in Kiribati about a year ago, and you think, how can that happen? If you don't get any rain and you don't have much groundwater, then all of a sudden you're very thirsty. So we're flying a couple. I know. Even the thought of it's made me tired. So we're flying in people. It's not one of those things you sort of think about. And water, a very heavy kind of thing to transport.
Yeah.
It's a kilo a litre, and most people need a couple of litres or more a day. So, it's a bit of a major humanitarian crisis. So a couple of desalination units have been flowing in.
Time to abandon ship?
Well, they are small islands, and they are there, and they're facing a bit of climate change. So, what do you do? I think in many ways it's indicative of the fact that it's not going to be, sort of too much water that's their problem, and the next while it's going to be too little. They talk of the whole sea level rise and all of that. Potentially, some distance down the track, if it indeed happens at all. But before then, you'll be actually suffering from a want of water.
Yeah, that's a terrible situation. Of course, as you say, with that water, the sea rise, that also affects the water underneath the atoll, right? And that's
exactly.
rising.
Yes, it does. Yes, and their groundwater supply becomes increasingly salty and contaminated. So, not good all around.
Yeah.
Maybe
See, and that kind of puts things in perspective, right? Because that's their problem over there, running out of water. Big, that's a massive deal. That's you need water to live. But here in New Zealand, the biggest deal at the end of last week, of course, was the fact that Coronation Street was going to be changing times on TV1.
Exactly, a major cultural shift. It's something resisted by the networks for a long time because it's not that a lot of people watch it, really. It's that the people who do watch it are sort of vociferous writers of letters to editors and demands. They tend to be sort of an older demographic with time on their hands.
And actual letters rather than emails.
That's right,
yeah.
Yes, although some of them are becoming increasingly net-savvy. Some of them may even be tweeting about it. I'm not entirely sure.
They set up a Facebook group.
Yes, have they?
Mm.
Oh, well, that's good to know. But finally, after all these years, this event has moved it in for MasterChef, which for some reason is inordinately popular with an enormous number of people. It's just a sort of an oddly cruel cooking game show. So, yes, they're moving it to sort of 5:30, and as people say, who's home then? It's probably, not that they're not home, it's probably they're in the middle of cooking their dinner. And the biggest sort of brouhaha that came out about that was John Key last week was doing a little spot on Radio Live, an hour with the politicians. Sorry, it's supposed to be a politics-free zone because of the election laws and various things. And his biggest sort of statement was, "I'm going to have a talk to someone in control and see if we can't change this." It sort of said, look, a casual talk or something like that, but there's sort of implication that the Prime Minister can go into sort of an independent, admittedly state-owned enterprise and say, "Hey, let's crack down on this. Let's move this back. We don't want that, particularly not in election year."
Yeah.
People, of course, very upset about the Prime Minister flexing his muscle in that particular way, when at the same time we're another soldier down, and we'd been just downgraded by a couple of credit rating agencies.
There's that. It's on that level, but also on the level that the government told TVNZ, "Hey, you're the commercial beast now. We're taking away any kind of public responsibility or programming responsibility. You just make as much money as you can." So they made a commercial decision. That happens, and now he wants to step in and say, "Oh, except for this program."
Except for this, yes, this program, which is a part of our national psyche, And the problem is, of course, that very difficult now to put on at 5:30 because it's a bit lewd. There's lesbianism.
Oh.
There's just been a big rape storyline in the UK that's prompted thousands and thousands more calls to crisis hotlines and all that kind of thing. Not exactly the kind of thing you want to put on in that 5:30 slot when the young kiddies may be watching.
No, not 5:30 stuff at all.
No,
but then again, over on the other channel, the Home and Away, that gets a bit racy.
Oh, well, I wouldn't know, Wammo. Haven't sort of had that. I sort of can't stomach watching too much of it.
Nor can I, T Radar.
And Australian and loud and brash. It's like watching a flock of galahs indulged in some kind of sort of, lewd and crass behaviour.
Gee, well, we're going to have to leave you to your robe and lounging.
Yeah.
And we will do that for the next few weeks, I think, in fact.
Well, yes, I'm off. I'll probably pop into New York, have a little bit of look at, and let you know how that protest is getting on.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully it may have made the media, and then we will speak again.
Sounds very good. Have a good time. Okay.
Will do.
See ya. Here goes T Radar, 25 minutes past.